All right, let us get to our next guest here on the program. It's the first time he's on this program, but we won't hold that against him. You can follow him on twitter.com/West Coast HKY. He is a co-host on NHL Network Radio, also a producer for TSN and a contributor to the Fourth Period. We welcome all the way from California, Jonathan Davis. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Matthew, and how are you?
Very well, very well. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Canada.
Hey, well, welcome back. I mean, one Canadian to another.
I know, that's right. Tell the folks you have a Montreal connection.
I do. Born in Montreal, lived there until I was 7, and then moved to dreaded Toronto, but never gave up my Canadian fan roots.
Okay, all right.
And I was in the building for the '93 finals for LA Montreal. That was a very tough one because I was looking down at where my family used to have season tickets. It was a very hard time to be working at the time for the LA Kings broadcast crew.
I got you. All right. Well, obviously it's been a really interesting Stanley Cup playoffs. So much unpredictability, I guess, is one of the big things to really sum up what's been happening. We have a bit of a lull now before the Stanley Cup final, which of course will begin on Monday. TSN 690 will bring you every game here on these airwaves. But just looking at these two combatants, if we look at the West Coast side of things, the East Coast bias, I feel like we all know a lot about the Penguins, particularly with the tie-ins with, Marc-Andre Fleury and a lot of the, Mario Lemieux and all that kind of stuff. But on the Sharks side of things, to me, they're really an intriguing story on how they, the implosion a couple years ago in the playoffs, where they are right now. Tell me what it's like in California right now. Is it just a local story in San Francisco, San Jose, or is it kind of permeating where the rest of California is getting behind them?
Yeah, I don't think anyone in LA or Anaheim is jumping on the San Jose bandwagon by any stretch of the imagination, Matthew. There's it is definitely more localized to the Northern California market for sure. But this is a team that, throughout the year, we're just kind of lurking in the background, toiling in that third spot for most of the year, challenged at times for first overall in the Pacific. But, it's been a great job that Doug Wilson has done in turning this team around. And, sometimes, they say that the best trades sometimes are the ones you don't make. And, it wasn't too long ago where Doug Wilson was trying to move both Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau, and for various reasons that didn't happen. But to see the way this team has transitioned to Joe Pavelski being captain, and he may be the best player that, maybe a good part of the hockey community doesn't really know and fully appreciate. But he is, a guy that scores 30-plus goals every year. He's led the league in game-winning goals. He leads the league in game-winning goals in the playoffs. He leads the league in goals in the playoffs. And so he may be the best player that not enough people know about. The way that Brent Burns has emerged into, being a Norris Trophy finalist. I mean, it wasn't, I remember being on the airways with Tony Marinaro early in the year, and we were talking about, could Brent Burns make Team Canada? And it was never a guy that I thought was, a guy that Mike Babcock can trust. But, this team has just really, really transitioned. Brent Burns has made himself an elite defenseman. And then the additions of guys like Joel Ward to this team and Jonas Donskoy, who could be the Chicago Blackhawks version of Artemi Panarin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been very good for them in these playoffs. So for me, I look at a guy like Logan Couture, Jonathan, and I know how good he's been in these playoffs. Obviously, he's a guy who's battled a lot of injuries in the regular season the last few years. To me, his ceiling is so gosh darn high. He reminds me sometimes of Joe Sakic, not just because of the BC connection, but how have you seen him evolve in these playoffs?
Well, look, he is definitely one of the best two-way centers in the league. The fact that, this guy being your second-line center, what a luxury to have for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I think the big thing for Logan Couture is that his maturity has really grown over the last couple of years, because I can remember being back in the locker room for Game 7 between LA and San Jose, and it was that the morning skate, he was a guy that he admitted being nervous, and I think that that's not the case right now. I don't think that Logan Couture ever came into any of the games that I was around him and ever had that nervous feeling. He's much more comfortable in his role where he's at, and I think that really when you look at this team and how it's transitioned, and guys like Logan kind of taking more of a leadership role in this team and being able to handle it, and Joe Pavelski, and allowing guys like Joe Thornton to be fall more into that secondary role. It's been a phenomenal thing for San Jose. But yeah, no, Logan Couture he's a threat at both ends of the ice, and like I said, to have him as a number 2 center is a true luxury. Chatting with
Jonathan Davis of NHL Network Radio. He's got a show called Two Man Advantage there. Also a feature producer for TSN and fourthperiod.com contributor as well, as we talk about this Stanley Cup final. So looking at Penguins versus the Sharks, are we looking at 5-4 games every game?
Well, I mean, yeah, you've got the two teams that are averaging over 3 goals a game in the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me with as much offense as you've got. I mean, both these teams don't have necessarily the stellar defense that maybe some of the other Cup teams have had, like Chicago and LA in the past. So the numbers would tell you that we're looking at more maybe 4-3 or 5-4 games. And hey, look, that would be a great thing. I mean, 2-1 games are exciting, but I think we all come to see goals. And so, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Penguins defense, once you get past Letang and now the way, Olimata has kind of, the way he has played the last couple of games more looks like the Olimata that we saw early on in the season and much of last season. That Penguins defense gets a little thin. I think this, when you look at this series, Matthew, it comes down to can the Penguins defense, hold back that potent Sharks offense, and will the depth of Pittsburgh's forwards kind of take control of this series? Because I really think 1 through 4 lines, Pittsburgh is a little stronger up front.
Jonathan, we were monitoring a story that the Montreal Gazette's Stu Cowan had in terms of speaking with the agent of Larry Robinson and talking about the fact that in 2012 they passed up the chance to have Larry Robinson as a coach, and obviously he's had such a great impact on the San Jose Sharks. Well, there's actually been a rebuttal from Jeff Molson just after 5 o'clock Eastern today to a fan of all people, as well as to Stu Cowan, the writer from the Gazette and the Gazette. He tweeted, contrary to what you hear/read, Larry chose to go to San Jose. We wish him the best of luck in the finals. Hashtag go Habs go. So that's just an interesting side note. But your thoughts on what you've seen or heard in terms of the effect of Larry Robinson on the Sharks?
Well, I think his effect has been very positive. But I think Larry's at a stage in his life where being an assistant, I think he's something that's a better fit for him. I think he's something that he is more comfortable with than taking on the role of being the head coach and the pressures that comes with. I just think it's a perfect fit for him, where he can really lend his experience. He can be more of that friend, mentor to the players, whereas that coach, many times has to take more of that hardline stance. And I'm just not sure that Larry's really, wants to be put in that position at this time of his life.
All right, and just wrapping up here with Jonathan Davis out on the West Coast, you cover the Kings certainly as well. David Trentadue here has a question.
Hey, Jonathan. I want to ask you about L.A. There was a report earlier in the week stating that the Kings will seemingly strip Dustin Brown of his captaincy. What do you make of that, given the man, he's won 2 Stanley Cups as captain, he's been loyal through good times and bad, and is there a chance that he moves to a new team before the start of the next season?
Well, let's start off with the first question about about him being stripped of the captaincy. Yes, he has been stripped of the captaincy. They haven't officially named a new captain yet. I think really what it comes down to is that Dean Lombardi has decided to kind of just change the way the LA Kings are doing business, and I think that they would like to see a new face. There's been a big rift between Dustin Brown and Daryl Sutter since day one. They've never been on the same page for whatever reason. I think that's not really something on Dustin. I think that's really more on Coach Daryl Sutter. Will he be moved? Possible. I think that it's more likely that he gets moved in the expansion draft, or at least gets exposed in the expansion draft, and I think he'd be a great fit for a team in Las Vegas. But look, the LA Kings have to make a move with either Marian Gaborik or Dustin Brown to create some cap space. So it wouldn't surprise me to see one of those two guys move. It's just a matter of who can they find a trading partner with.
He is Jonathan Davis. You can follow him on twitter.com/WestCoastHKY. Thank you so much for taking some time, and enjoy the final.
All right, Matthew. Always a pleasure. Anytime.